okay? So again, that's called the least common multiple. It's the same as the common denominator. The smallest multiple that is common to 3, 5, and 6. All right, so let me randomly call on somebody. Okay, I knew that would happen. Jamelin, what would be the least common multiple of 6, 3, and 5? Okay, Jamelin, what's 6 times 5? Again, if you get stuck on this, sometimes you can pick the two biggest numbers, right? So 6 times 5 is 30. It's okay, don't worry about it. And so 30 is a multiple of 3, 3 times 10, right? That's what multiple means. A bigger number that you get by multiplying a whole number to this number. So 5 times 6 would be 30, 3 times 10 would be 30, and 5 times 6 would be 30. That's why we call this a multiple, right? It's also divisible by 6, 3, and 5. And that means if you divide 30 by 6, you'll get a whole number. If you divide 30 by 3, you'll get a whole number. If you divide 30 by 5, you'll get a whole number, right? So little subtle things that can cause a little hang up. And this is already an advanced problem. So one way you could do this is you could multiply top and bottom by 5. You could multiply top and bottom by 10. And you could multiply top and bottom by 6. And then you'll have your common denominator of 30. Okay, thanks for letting me know. So I always make recordings of these vids, just so you guys, I get the issues, so you'll have the lesson available if there's issues on your end. I understand. That's just something we got to work around. So again, you can get the common denominator, multiply top and bottom by 5, multiply top and bottom by 10. Now, when you multiply the top by 10, you got to distribute property, 20 plus 10x. And then multiply top and bottom by 6. So this will become 6 times 4x. You could do that. But let's go ahead and multiply both sides by 30. Okay, because that is actually a better way to handle this complicated problem. So I'm going to multiply this fraction by 30, which means 30 over 1. I'm going to multiply this fraction by 30, which means 30 over 1. I'm going to multiply this fraction by 30, which means 30 over 1. Now, if we're going to multiply the left side by 30, we got to multiply the right side, right? We don't have to worry about that if we're getting a common denominator, but if we're multiplying everything by 30 so we can cancel the denominators, we got to multiply the right side, because if the left side now is 30 times bigger, the right side has to be 30 times bigger for them to be equal. Okay, so now I'm going to call randomly on students. Okay, so Lucas, what's 30 divided by 6?
5.
Right. Okay, so that means this is going to become 5 times x. Becomes 10 times 2 plus x. Now be careful, because you might forget the 10 is also multiplied to 2. So I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to write this. All right. Okay, now we got the next fraction. And so next fraction, right? So let's see, people who aren't here. Katie, what's 30 divided by 5? 4x. So now we can write 24x. And then don't forget this side, because we have to multiply the right side by 32. So this becomes 30x minus 30. Okay, and then you guys can finish that. And just so you can check yourself, you should be getting negative 50 over 9. Okay, now the next problem. The next problem, our first task, is to go ahead and get the absolute value by itself. So we want to first get this absolute value part by itself. And this negative 2 next to that vertical line, that implies negative 2 times the absolute value expression. But we can't do the distributive property because that's not parentheses. All right, so we'll worry about that -2 times later. Right now, let's go ahead and get rid of the +4. So we're going to go ahead and add 4 to both sides first. And I'll go ahead and put this over here so that there's more room. Let's dry it out. All right, so this -2 times the absolute value in the expression inside. Now we have, oh wait, I just did the same thing sometimes people do too. We should be minusing 4 on both sides. I know I said it, but oops. Okay, so again, we want to reverse the operation. Again, you know, what I did, the same thing people do. You react to what you see. It came out my mouth, but what I saw, I put plus, right? And that's what we do. That's what humans do. Okay, so now we got to this. So this should be -6. And again, you're combining negatives. If you lose $2 and you lose $4, you get $6 total lost. Okay, and that might be an issue. All right, now we can't do the distributive property. Also, we're not going to add 2, and that's what people sometimes do. We'll see a minus and we think, oh, plus. But this doesn't mean subtracting 2. This means multiply a -2 to whatever we get from the absolute value. So we can't do the distributive property. So the only thing we can do is reverse the multiplication of -2. So we divide by -2. Okay? And then I'll just keep this over here. So now we got the absolute value stuff. And now the -6 divided by -2 becomes 3. Now, this might have become a problem where this was -3. If that happens, you can stop. The absolute value has to equal a positive, because whatever we do in here, whatever number this becomes when we substitute for x, after we absolute value, it's going to equal a positive number. So if this says it equals -3, that can't happen. All right, so now we can solve this. Now, if you want, you can do this as 2 separate problems. Solve this problem. And solve this problem. All right, and I'll tell you what you should get. So you can check yourself. You should be getting, let me see where I'll put this, -16 over 15 or 4/3. That's what you should get. You can get your common denominator, but in this case, since you have a 1/3 that doesn't have an x, probably the best thing to do would be the same technique. So if you multiply by the 6, right, if we did that, then this is going to become 6 divided by 2 times 5, so this becomes 15x. And here, when you multiply the 6, that becomes 6 divided by 3 times 1, which is 2. And then this becomes 18. All right, now that's a lot easier to solve. This might be hard for you. That's why multiplying to cancel the denominators is helpful. We don't have to deal with these fractions. And so we're just using the least common multiple of 2 and 3, which is 6. And we can do the same thing for the bottom, because the only difference between these two equations is instead of +3, this is -3. So the same thing's going to happen. 6 divided by 2 is 3, 3 times 5, so we still get the 15x. And then here, 1/3 of 6, 2. And then the only difference is now it's -18. Okay, so notice you'd add 2, you get 20. 20 over 15 simplifies to 4/3. You add 2, now it's going to become -16, and then you divide by 15.